You just met someone, maybe at a coffee shop, maybe on a dating app, and before they said a single word, your brain already decided something about them. Can I trust this person? It took you about 1/10 of a second. That is faster than you can blink, but the real answer to how you did that is far stranger than you think. Your brain is not reading their words. It is not reading their resume. It is reading their face. And it is doing something your ancestors were doing long before language even existed. Think about the last time you scrolled past a photo online. You did not study it. You glanced. And in that glance, some part of your mind whispered a verdict. Trustworthy or not. Warm or cold. Safe or dangerous. You did not choose to make that judgment. It just happened. Psychologist Alexander Todorov at Princeton wanted to know exactly how fast this happens, so he ran an experiment. He showed people unfamiliar faces for just 1/10 of a second, barely enough time to register a shape, let alone a personality. Then he asked a simple question. Does this person look trustworthy? The answers were remarkably consistent. Strangers who had never met each other, looking at faces they had never seen, agreed with each other again and again. Something in the geometry of a face was sending the same signal to every brain that looked at it. Here is the strange part. Giving people more time did not change their minds. Todorov found that judgments made in 1/10 of a second barely differed from judgments made after several seconds of staring. Your snap decision and your considered decision were almost the same decision. Why would evolution build a system that fast and that confident about something as complicated as another person's character? To understand that, you have to go back, long before courts, before contracts, before background checks. Your ancestors lived in small groups, 50 people, maybe 150. Every stranger who approached that group was a question mark. Are you here to trade or to take? Are you kin or are you a threat? There was no time for due diligence, no time to watch someone's behavior for a month before deciding if they belonged near your children, your food, your fire. A slow judge might survive to make a second guess, but a slower judge might not survive the first one. So the brain built a shortcut, a fast, automatic first pass at a question that used to be a matter of life and death. Who is safe to be near? That shortcut did not vanish when your ancestors built cities, laws, and reputations you could check with a phone call. It just kept running underneath all of that, quietly steering you every time you glance at a new face. So, what exactly is your brain measuring? Todorov's later research pointed to something surprisingly specific. 2 dimensions seem to dominate the whole judgment. The first is trustworthiness, which your brain links unconsciously to expressions that resemble happiness. Slightly upturned mouths, softer brows. The second is dominance, which your brain links to jaw width and brow heaviness, cues that once signaled physical strength. In other words, your brain is not reading someone's actual character. It is pattern matching their face against emotional expressions and physical formidability. 2 things that mattered enormously when survival depended on reading a stranger correctly and quickly. There is a darker layer here too. Psychologist Leslie Zebrowitz spent years studying something she called babyfaceness, large eyes, a small chin, a rounder face. People with these features are consistently judged as more trustworthy, more naive, and less capable of cunning, regardless of whether any of that is true. Meanwhile, mature-featured faces, the ones with strong jaws and lower brows, get read as more dominant, more competent, sometimes more dangerous. None of this is about who someone actually is. It is about which ancient facial category their features happen to resemble. Your brain is not judging a person. It is judging a shape and assuming the shape tells the truth. Does any of this actually work? Does trustworthy looking mean trustworthy being? Researchers have tested this directly using trust games where people bet real money on how much a stranger will return to them. And the results are almost uncomfortable. Facial trustworthiness barely predicts actual trustworthy behavior. People who look reliable are not meaningfully more reliable. The system that feels so certain, so fast, so obviously correct, is largely running on pattern recognition that has almost nothing to do with reality. Psychologist Nalini Ambady found something related, but even more unsettling. In her research on what she called thin slicing, people watching just a few seconds of silent video, teachers in a classroom, doctors with a patient, could predict outcomes months later with real accuracy. Thin slices of behavior sometimes do carry useful information. But a still photograph is not behavior. It is just structure. Bone, fat, muscle, arranged by genetics and age, not by moral character. And your brain treats that structure as if it were a verdict. So think about what that means for your daily life. Every job interview where a hiring manager forms an impression before the first handshake ends. Every jury that looks at a defendant's face before a single piece of evidence is presented. Every dating profile swiped away in under a second, based on nothing but bone structure and a smile. You are not evaluating these people. You are pattern matching them against a survival algorithm built for a world of 50-person tribes and immediate physical danger. There is research suggesting this bias even shapes outcomes that should have nothing to do with appearance. Studies on facial dominance have found correlations between how dominant a business leader's face looks and certain company outcomes, and between how competent a political candidate's face appears and election results, predictions people made from a single glance, with no knowledge of policy or performance. A brain built to judge safety in a hunter-gatherer band is now unknowingly voting. Here is the uncomfortable question underneath all of this. If your first impression of a face is running on a 50,000-year-old survival shortcut, how much of your daily life is actually decided by geometry instead of judgment? How many people have you misjudged, not because you thought carefully and got it wrong, but because you never got the chance to think at all? Your brain had already ruled by the time your conscious mind arrived at the conversation. This does not mean the instinct is useless. It kept your ancestors alive in situations where hesitation could be fatal. But you are not living in that world anymore. You are living in one built on contracts, references, repeated interactions, and time. All the slower tools your ancestors never had access to, and all of them far better at predicting who someone actually is than the shape of their jaw. The next time you meet someone new and your gut delivers an instant verdict before they have said a word, you can notice it without obeying it. That flash of trust or distrust is not information about them. It is a message from every ancestor who needed to answer one question in half a second. Are you safe? You just met someone, and before they said a word, your ancient brain had already decided. But now you know that decision was never really about them at all.